welcome to Module 4 of this series on learning Unity. And uh, it and what we're going to do today is we're going to learn about animations. So there's mechanism animations, also known as just Unity animation system, but we're also going to explore animations for UI objects. So we're going to be doing two things today. We're actually going to also visit the Mixamo website, take a character, and add an animation to it. So that's our goal for today. It's gonna be a lot of fun, lot of interesting insight here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna continue on from our project from last module where we learned how to create a little miniature game. And I'm going to show you the end product. So if you recall this, we talked about onboarding, we talked about how to create scenes and how to navigate between scenes. So it was an interesting thing. And what we're going to do today is we're going to add animation. So if I look at the end product here, and you can see here what's going on is we're having an image flash in and out. We're having an image slide in from the side every 5 seconds. So we're going to be controlling it so that we're going to actually control this one in code. And you can see the buttons, the play buttons actually fade in and out. All right. So the buttons are actually especially important because typically for the games, you want to have buttons that have some sort of mild animation to them. And you'll also notice that we're controlling the speed here in which the animation is placed. So all of these different animations have different speeds. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add a new scene. So we'll use this about icon here. I'm going to click on that. Right, and so you can see here we have the Unity Fembot here in an idle animation. So we're going to actually have this character have an idle animation added to it through the Mixamo website. And I've already set it up so that the letters A, S, and D do different animations. I'm going to press the letter A. And you're going to see there's one animation right there, a little attack animation. They're all cheesy attack animations, and without weapons, they really don't make much sense. But we're illustrating animations here, so I just pressed S. And there's a different animation. And D for a third animation. All right. So those are the animations there. We hit back and we'll return back to our home page. So this is our end product for today. This is our goal is. So we're continuing on from the last video, being able to build out additional functionality to our little miniature game here. So we need to open up the last project. You probably want to make if you're keeping records, you probably want to make a copy of the last project and just continue on from it. So you have a record of the last exercise, but it's totally up to you. All right. So I just drag that away. And now I'm going to open up a copy of the other project. All right, and this was the state that we were in after the last video. So let's get into adding some animations here. I'm going to start with the play button. All right, and zoom in. There we go. And I click on the play button. All right, so I got the play button in focus here. Now, what I want to do is I want to go to and if you don't already have, you should have your animation tab and your animator tab. We're going to need these two tabs today. So if you don't have them, you can go to Window, and you can go to Animation. And there's Animation and Animator. You can add each of these two tabs, drag them wherever you want, make it comfortable to you. I like them here because they're easier to access. And yeah, go ahead and add them into and dock them somewhere in your Unity window if you don't already have it. So I'm just gonna go full screen here, and so with play highlighted, all right, so with it in focus, right, we got play button there. You can click on animation, and I click on the create button. This is gonna ask me to create a file. All right, where do I want to save it? I'm gonna create a new folder called animations. All right, and I'm gonna click on animations, and we'll give it a name. Call it play button fade. And you're gonna, I call it play button, but really you should give it a more generic name than that, so you can actually, because you're gonna reuse that same anim file in your other two buttons. All right, so you'll notice that there are there are buttons here like record. This is record. Here's play, and then you got forward and rewind. You got this button called add property. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by adding a property to our animation here. So I'm gonna click on add property, and you'll see a window pop up. All right, a little mini window. And if we expand image, all right, I'm gonna choose color and hit the plus sign for color. All right, what I'm doing here is I am going to create an animation that will modify the color property of this button. What I want to do is I want to have it have some sort of a glowing fade in, fade out type effect. Now I could go with the alpha, but I think the color actually has more of an effect than fading out. So instead, just changing the color to something dark, and then back to its original color. All right. So I have that. Now, if I want to create an animation, I have to hit the record button. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit record. All right. So you see the colors have changed over here, and this is our timeline bar. So now by default we have here its original color at 0 seconds. And you have its original color at 1 second, just sort of a default setup. And you can delete these. You can just mouse over. You can click on that, and you can hit the delete key if you want to delete those. But I'm going to leave them actually. I'm going to have it be a 1 second animation, and it'll start with its original look. So this little play button, the way it looks at 0 and at 1, and I'm going to hit the 30 mark right there. And what I'm going to do is, now that I have my timeline bar at the 30-second mark, or the half a second mark rather, it's like half a second, not 30 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and change a setting on the play icon. All right, I can do that, and it'll record that because I have record going. So it's actually recording what I'm doing. So now that I've got the bar at halfway, I'm actually going to go to the color property here on the play button. It's white by default, which means that it's going to actually display its natural look and feel. All right. Now, when I click on the color, this window pops up, the color swash. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go, like, let's say to a dark red, right? Like a crimson. All right. And I'll hit X. All right. Now you'll see some diamonds here that have been added, meaning that some change has happened at the 30-second mark, or half a second mark rather. So now I'm going to just test out and see what happens. So I'm going to click on the record button again to stop it. All right. So now I have an animation. I'm going to hit play. And let's look at the game. So the game tab, you can see by hitting play, this is the animation. Now it's a bit fast. I'm going to show you how to control speed later. You can control speed here, right? By, maybe, reducing, deleting this and having the half a second mark be the return, or actually spreading it out rather, because we want to slow it down. But it's actually easier just to create your animation within 1 second and then adjust the speed somewhere else. All right. And we're going to see how to do that momentarily later on in this video. Okay. I'm happy with this. So I'm going to hit Control S. So making sure I click somewhere here, hit Control S to save that animation. All right. So now I have my animation, and let's look at our properties here for the play button. You'll notice that something called Animator has been created. All right. So animation is the actual animation. Animator is the controller. So you can have like a state machine and play different animations. And we're going to actually get to that state machine topic later on. We actually play with mechanism animations and our little fembot there. So for now, we'll leave it like this. In fact, if you hit play, let's see what happens. And as you can see here, the play button is glowing in and out. All right. Now the question is, I want to have all 3 buttons glowing in and out. So I don't have to recreate the animation 3 times. I can apply that animation to the other 2 buttons. All right. Now, all I have to do is click on the settings button. So we have a settings button and the about button. I'm actually going to rename the about button to something else in a moment, but settings button we have here, we'll highlight it. We'll start with the settings button, right? So we have here, settings button is in focus here. So I'm going to scroll down, hit Add Component, and look for Animator. All right. Now controller is going to be, well, we called it, or sorry, it'll be play button. All right. So automatically creates a, so just to explain here, the play button automatically create an animator controller called play button. Now, like I said, it's a state machine. It's a very simple state machine. In our case, it's just going to play one animation, but every animation that is being applied to a scene, whether it be UI or a 3D object, is going to have an animator object built in. It's a state machine, so this already has one built in. We're just going to apply the play button's state machine to the settings button. And if I run it, I should see that both buttons are flashing in and out. And there you have it. Now you have two buttons. So let's just finish it off with the third button. All right, remember to stop playback before making changes. Otherwise, whatever changes you make, if you're in run mode, if you're in runtime mode, it won't save them, and you'll be very frustrated after, especially if after you've made a lot of changes. So click on the About button. I'm actually going to rename the About button because I'm actually going to, instead of an About page, because we're going to create a new little miniature game. So, and we're going to call it mini game eventually. So let's just call it the mini game button. Let's make sure About is highlighted. There we go. Call it mini game button. All right. And let's scroll down and we'll hit Add Component. And again, Animator. And I'm going to, for Runtime Animator Controller, and click on the little circle there. Choose Play button. All right. And we should have all three buttons up and running. All right. And so there you have all three buttons glowing. Now, like I said earlier, it feels a bit fast. So let's reduce the speed of this animation. And when we reduce the speed, it'll apply to all three at the same time. So I mentioned the animation tab. Well, let's look at the animator tab. The animator tab, like I said, is a state machine, and it already has my play button. If I click on the controller, it'll actually bring into focus if you don't already have the animator state machine in focus. So if you're not sure, you could always click on the button and then click on controller, right? And you will have your state machine in focus. Now, the green represents entry, so this is our starting point. It's always going to jump to an animation, and play button fade is our default animation here, and this little line represents a transition. So we're transiting from our starting point to play button fade, which is our default state or default animation, so it's always going to stay there. And clicking on this to bring it into focus, you'll notice that in the inspector there's a speed. I'm going to reduce the speed from 1 to 0.3. Hit enter. All right. And you know what the beauty of this speed thing is, that we're going to see this in a moment with another animation, is if I do -0.3, it actually does the animation in reverse. All right, it does it in reverse. So you don't have to create negative animations or reverse animations. You can create animations going in one direction and then just reuse it, duplicate it, right? So it saves you a lot of time. All right, so I've got 0.3 here. I'm going to hit enter, just double check. Click somewhere on the little work area here, do a Control S to save, just to be sure. And let's run it. And as you can see, the animation has slowed down to something more manageable, more elegant in a way. We don't really want to have those fast animations on buttons because it can really have an effect on the user, especially with epilepsy. Like you have to be careful about the flashiness of certain games, and you may have seen, especially with Nintendo games, you've seen the little warnings about epileptic seizures. So if we can slow down our animations a bit, like in this effect, because it's unnecessary to have it fast, then all the better. And you could play with the settings, see what really suits you. But this seems like an elegant, nice glow in and out for some buttons. All right, so we've done the buttons. what I want to do is I'm going to add an image to the center of the screen and have it shrink and fade. And look and feel wise, it makes the homepage look stupid, but I just want to illustrate how to do it. So you can maybe find a better way to do it in some other part of the game. All right, so to do that, we'll stop playback first, because remember, I will stop playback before you continue on with adding more functionality to your game. I'm going to add an image somewhere in the dead center of the scene. So I'm going to zoom out here. My scene, center it a bit. Let's adjust it. Now go to Game Object, go to UI, and go to Image. All right, it threw a little image there, dead center. Dimensions are 100 by 100. Let's change it to be like 200 by 100. Just have like a landscape feel. I'm not looking for perfection on my image. Just want to have like a rectangular image. And then source image, just pick one of the images from your slider last time around. I'm going to choose Destiny. Yeah, I think that's a good one. So just one of the images you have on the screen that we made from our slider carousel last time around, and continue. All right, so we have our image here. All right, now what we want to do is we want to create a animation. All right, also it's called image. I want to rename it to be grow image, so just to give it more of a description. All right, so let's say grow image. All right, we got grow image there. Now I want to add an animation to this thing. So what I'm going to do is, because grow image is in focus, so enter to be sure, and go to my animation tab and hit create. And like last time, it's going to actually ask me to create a new anim file to represent the animation. I'll put under animations. I'm going to call this grow image anim.anim. All right. So I've got my animation here. I'm going to add a property to my grow image animation by hitting add property. And it's under actually rectal transform. There it is, scale. So rect transform, hit scale. And now I can play with the scale. All right, now you'll see that by default, because we're playing with the scaling, our scale is 1, 1, 1. All right, so at 0, it's 1, 1, 1, and at 1 second, it's also 1, 1, 1. I'm going to reverse that. What I want to do for both is set them to 0. So I got to hit the record button so I can start recording my changes. I'm already at the 1 mark. Let's make it 0, 0, 0, so it disappears. And also at the 0 mark, all right, let's make it 0, 0, 0. And then at the half second mark, we'll make it 1, 1, 1. All right, so we reverse this in a way. And so we're having it at the 0 second mark, scale will set to 0, 0, 0. At the half second mark, it goes to 1, 1, 1. And at the 1 second mark, it goes to 0, 0, 0. All right. Now let's add a little bit of a caveat to this. So maybe we can play with the curve, or because right now it's gonna increase and decrease linearly, and you can actually play around with the look and feel of it. So let's say around here, maybe around looks like the 2/3 mark. Let's set this to be 0.5. All right. So then that means it'll have to shoot up to 1 really quick from the half mark. So it'll actually slowly increase. When it gets to around here, it's going to shoot up to 1. And so let's do something funny with that. Say around here, the 2/3 mark again. It's supposed to be about 0.1. Let's keep it at 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. This is going to be a very uneven animation. All right, let's do a Control S to save. Click on the record button again to stop our animation recording. So do Control S again. Let's play it. Hit play. Looks kind of funny there, uneven. It's like more of like whoosh, whoosh, right, happening there. All right, and you can, and if you're not happy with it, you could always slide things around. So hit record again. Maybe I can drag this a bit more to here. All right, and let's see what happens. And it disappears really quickly. All right, so play with it. All right, have fun with it. See what you can do with it. Okay, so we've got our animation there, and let's just hit Control S to save, and let's hit run. All right, and you can see the animation when I hit play. You can see it in tandem with our glowing buttons animation. Like a whoosh effect there. So it's just kind of coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out. All right, so that is our growing and shrinking animation. Now, we're going to do one more animation. We're going to have an image slide in from the side. All right, so let's hit stop or stop playback. And we're going to add a new image. So I'm going to switch over to scene. I'm going to add a new game object, UI, another image, and it'll also be 200 by 100. So the width will set to 200. I'm going to set this image to be a different image. So I'll choose the Justice Gundam for that one. All right. And I'm going to call it a slide image. All right. Now let's anchor this to the side. So instead of being the center, I'll click on the center side, hit Alt. So it's on the side, and let's slide it off screen. Right there. Okay, so you can see in the game it's off screen. All right, we're gonna have it slide in, slide out, slide in, slide out. Now when I do those, I'm gonna create an animation just to slide in. All right, just to slide in. And then we're gonna use our controller to slide it back out. Okay, and some code as well. So we're gonna look at how to do that as well. All right, so I'm gonna do a Control S to save my scene because I've added some changes here. So I got my scene there. And now what we're gonna do is create an animation. So make sure slide image is highlighted. Go to animation, hit create. And we're gonna go to animations folder. I'm gonna call this slide image anim.anim. All right, so I got my animation there. Property I want to add because I'm moving things around is under rect transform again. I'm looking for anchor position, anchored position, which is this third one here. I'm gonna hit plus. All right, so now it creates an animation automatically. If I expand on it, so positioning features here, it's actually recorded the actual current position of it. So at 1 second, it's going to be here. Sorry, at 0 seconds, it's going to be at its current position. At 1 second, it will still be at its current position. All right. So what I want to do is I want to set it so that 1 second, it's on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit record. I'm going to switch over to the scene. Now just before I do, I have the 1 second mark highlighted. All right. And actually, let's just delete what's there. So hit delete. Okay. And on the animator, click on the on the scene. Let's slide this guy in. Okay. Now let's look at our animation tab again. And you'll see that some dots have been created here. I'm going to hit stop recording, so click on the record button again. And now let's hit play. And you can see what's going on here. It's actually sliding in and disappearing, sliding in and disappearing, sliding in and disappearing, which is fine. It's exactly what we want, because I want to illustrate to you that negative speed to get it to go away. All right. So now this is good. Unhit the play button. Just click somewhere on this workspace here and hit Control S to save that animation, just to be sure we have it. Now it's up to us to apply it and get it to go backwards. So what we want to do now is we want to get the reverse of this going so it goes away. I don't have to actually add more to the animation. I can take full advantage of the animator. Like I said earlier, the animator is your state machine for configuring animations. So when we look at the animator here for our slide image, by default we have our entry going to slide image anim, all right? And it's just sitting there. What I can do is I can create, or actually copy, this animation and paste it. So I'm clicking on it to highlight it, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and there we go. I have another animation called slide image anim 0. Now, how do I get from this state to this state? Well, I right click on this starting point here, choose make transition, and you see an arrow creates. Click on the second animation. Now I actually want to make a transition to go from here back to here. So I'm going to right click here, make transition, return back. So now let's see what happens here. We'll hit play. Well, actually, no, before we do, there's actually one other thing I have to do because it's actually not going to work yet. So I have here, transition from here. It's just going to repeat the same animation again. What I need to do to shrink it down, click on this setting. So slide image anim 0. You could rename it to something better. Change the speed to -1 and hit enter. That'll reverse the animation. All right. So just hit enter. Make sure that it's -1. Click away. Let's hit play. And as you can see, it is now sliding in and out, right? So you don't have to create extra animations. You can take what you got and just create the reverse of it. So just create animations one way. So like in our case with the grow and shrink, I didn't have to do the growing and shrinking in the one animation. I could have done what I did here and just had it slide in one way and then have the reverse going on at the same time. And you can see the animator running here. It's buzzing. It's telling you what animation's going and what state it's in. So that's the beauty of it. Now, like I said earlier, this feels a little too fast. So why don't we slow it down? So I'm going to click on the first slide and in slide animation and bring it to focus. There we go. Its speed is 1. Let's reduce it down to 0.3. All right. And click on the other state. So the reverse of this, it's -1. Let's change that to -0.3. All right. And give it a shot again. And there you go. It's a lot more slower. All right. Now, what if we, let's actually set this up so that we can control when this happens. Okay? Like right now, it's just going in and out repeatedly, right? But what if we didn't want to go in automatically? What if we wanted to set up so it executes, let's say, every 10 seconds? All right? So we're going to introduce something called a trigger. All right? So triggers are pieces of animators that can allow you to start an animation in code, or make a transition, that is, in code. Make a transition from state to state. So we hit stop here. So to add a trigger, just hit the plus sign. And we'll choose trigger. I'm going to call this trigger slide image trigger. All right. Now this empty circle, this gray circle, means it's not enabled. If I click on it, it becomes enabled. So I'm going to click on, make sure it's an empty circle there. All right. Now I have to apply this trigger to a transition in my animation state machine here. So I'm actually going to click on the arrow returning back from the reverse to the starting point. And so when I click on this transition here, I'll see conditions. List is empty. I hit plus. Slide image trigger. It's the only image. It's only the only trigger there. So I'm going to just choose that. There's no other triggers there to worry about. Just hit Control S to save somewhere, on the state machine. All right. Now let's apply this in code. So let's get the code to run this. So to do that, because I already have main menu script as part of my scene, I'm going to add this trigger code there. So let's go over to that file. All right, so we have here our main page script loaded. And what we're going to do first is we're going to add a game object for slide image. All right, so I'm going to say public game object slide image. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a coroutine that will load this image. That'll load this trigger every 5 seconds, let's say. Okay. So we know that coroutines start with the keyword IEnumerator, right? So we did this already for our asynchronous load scene. So I'm going to create one right there. We did one for fake login as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say IEnumerator. And we'll say load slide image. That'll be the name of our coroutine. All right. And we'll just do a while true. All right. We'll do a yield return new wait 4 seconds. All right. 5. Oops, not 50, but 5. All right. Wait for 5 seconds. And after 5 seconds, we'll kick the trigger in. We'll say slide image dot get component animator. All right. Dot set trigger. The name of our trigger was slide image trigger. All right. If you want, you can double check it in your Unity editor. All right, so we have slide image trigger spelled there. Slide image trigger here. All right, that's it for our coroutine. But we need to first off stop playback for our image here. So I'm going to go to start. And there's start. I'm going to say slide image dot get component animator dot stop playback. All right, so there in start, and instead I'm going to have fake login load the coroutine. So I'm going to say once we're done, we've loaded our text, we'll say start coroutine for load slide image. There. All right. So we have our new coroutine here, load slide routine. We're going to call this coroutine within fake login once we're done. All right. And we're going to have start. Inside start, we're going to stop playback of our animation there. Okay. So now all that's left, we'll hit save, Control S to save the script. Switch back to Unity editor. And connect things up. Okay, so now all I have to do is click on our main page script. We see here slide image is none. So let's drag our slide image over. Hit Control S to save and give it a run. Now you'll notice that it actually acts a little funny. You may have noticed it actually popping in, popping out. It's still continuing to go. It's not exactly doing it every 5 seconds. There is one other thing we have to do. So let's hit stop. Right now, by default, this animation and all the animations we've created to date are automatically set to loop. All right, so slide in and then repeat again. So if clicking on slide anim brings us to the animations file for it, there is a checkbox called loop time. I'm going to uncheck this checkbox and just do like a, well, it should save automatically. Just do Control S anyway, just to be sure. And let's run it again. And there you go. You notice that it's slowly fading in and out every 5 seconds, sliding in and out every 5 seconds. So it takes its time there. All right, so there you have it. Those are UI animations. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to animations for game objects, for 3D game objects. We're going to use Mixamo. So now that we're moving on to creating animations for 3D game objects, we need like a 3D object here. I'm going to bring in, I'm not going to use Unity3D. Unity3D, it doesn't work very well with Mixamo. So I'm going to bring in another object. I'm calling it Fembot. I pulled it out of another package for that I purchased. So the UFE fighting engine, I purchased that myself. So I'm just using that for this educational program here because it's got the perfect dimensions, a perfect setup to work with. In particular, it needs a proper T-pose, and you'll see what I mean by that in a second. So I'm just going to bring in my my character right now. All right, so I've added it in manually. I assume that you probably paused and also brought in an object, a 3D game object, a humanoid object's actually what we need, because Mixamo has amazing animations for humanoid objects. So if I click on Fembot and I click on Fembot, you can see Fembot is right here. Basic setup here. I'll talk about these settings later, not right now. What I want to do is I want to take the same female robot, which I have here in Windows Explorer, all right, the FBX file. So it's important that it's in an FBX file format. It's important that it has a proper bone structure, which we'll talk about when I bring it into the game world later on. But first, let's actually add some animations here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a browser and go to mixamo.com. So actually, I'll leave this. We'll pull this away. I'll bring in a Chrome browser. All right. Now, this is probably the home page you've got. It's kicked me out already. It was bought by Adobe, I believe a couple of years ago, and integrated into the Adobe software suite. So your Adobe login should work properly. So you can go ahead and log in, which is what I'm going to do. And it's a very heavy resource. So you don't want to leave this browser open all the time, especially if you're running Unity. It can bog down system resources if you don't have a powerful enough machine to withstand it. So be very wary about leaving this window open. It's actually, as you can see, it's a very heavy duty resource, and on your own time you can explore this and see what it's all about. So it's a very vast area to be playing around with. And you definitely want to play around with. You definitely want to explore. Like click on characters, click on animations, and see what's out there. But for now, I'm just gonna jump right into this this workspace here, and you'll see that we have the basic default. You can see Fembots here as well, but I'm gonna upload my copy just to show you what you would do. So suppose you had your own character, it's ready to go. It's got some amazing features to it. So I'm gonna hit upload character, I'm going to drag fembot into it. All right, so you can see there's fembot. I'm going to drag fembot in, let it upload. Now, assuming it's got a proper T-pose to it, it should be all right to do exactly what I want it to do. All right, so it's processing. All right, now it's trying to bring it in. Give it a moment to actually draw the character in. All right, so there's fembot basic pose already up and running. If you have a proper T pose where it's actually standing like in a T position, arms spread out, that's ideal. But if the bone structure is correct, you should be okay to use the character, even if it already has an animation embedded in it already. So I'm going to hit next. Yes, I'm going to hit next. It's going to use this. Now I'm going to apply 4 animations to this character. So I have the search bar here. I'm going to search for an idle animation. So idle. And let's see what options there are for all kinds of idle animation. And they have different things like, and so you can see the different idle. A lot of them are fighting. Some could just be standing around. Hanging idle is a cute one. Old man idle. If I click on old man idle, let's see how old man looks. But you can definitely have a lot of fun here. Right, all fembot needs is a cane or a walker, and there she goes. Let's do. I'm gonna do like a. Let's see, warrior idol. Okay. Almost like wrestling there. Ninja idol looks fun. Okay, I'm gonna take ninja idol. Actually, it's kind of sinking through the ground there. I don't know if I want that. There's victory idol. All right, so let's shall just take just idle, standard idle there. All right, looks good. And you can play around with posture. So all these settings here you can play around with, right? I sometimes get lost on this website because I just want to see every animation applied to my characters. Right, so you can play around. Right, you can raise the guard up higher if you wanted. So you see the different settings. So the fists are higher, closer to the face. Activity level. Overdrive is a common one amongst all of them. All right, so overdrive is really the speed. So you see how fast the animation is going. You can just reset it. You hit there's a reset button right there to go back. Arm space, you want to spread out the arms or bring them closer together. All right. All right, so I'll let you play around. Actually, this looks good. So once you're happy with the settings you've played with, just hit download. All right. Now, what file do you want to download it in? You should say FBX for Unity and hit download. Eventually your file will download. And so it's downloading there. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring in three more animations. So idle is good. Let's. I'm looking for an attack animation now. All right, and so there's all kinds. Like there's a zombie attack. So I click on a zombie attack. All right, looks kind of silly there. Or there's another zombie one. That looks crazy. Yeah, I'll put that in. Let's see what the emphasis looks like when I increase it. Okay. I'm not looking for perfection in this exercise. Of course, when you'll have to tune the settings and really play around with it and have fun with it, right? It's for your game. You want it to have some really cool animations. So I'm going to hit download for this one. I'm going to call it attack 1. Or actually, we'll call it attack 1 later on. But FBX for Unity. Hit download. It's processing it. All right, so there's the zombie attack. It's downloading it right now. I'm going to scroll down and see what other attacks. So now there's weaponized attack. So assume you have a weapon or a magic spell. Let's try this magic spell. If you see like it's a little thicker, it's actually a pack, magic spell pack. So it actually will download like 13 animations at the same time. I don't want to go that large. So I'm going to do like a jump attack instead. All right, so that's a cute one. You know, I'll hit download for that. FBX for Unity. All right, and I don't have a weapon on there, but oh, a fireball attack. Let's do that one. Oh yeah, and let's download this one. All right, but pause the video, take a moment, play around with animations, play around with the settings, you know, take some time to explore, mix them up. There's a lot to this website. It's a really good website. Okay, so now I've got my files. What I want to do is I want to bring them all into my project. All right, so I went ahead and copied and pasted them into my downloads folder. Before I click away to let it automatically create the meta files, let's just rename these. So I'm gonna just so because I don't like the @ symbol, but I mean it won't really cause any issues. I'm just gonna call it fembot idle, and then let's call it fembot attack 1. I mean the names that are there are probably better for your game, but just for simplicity in our tutorial here, I'm gonna just scale it down to just be fembot attack 2 and attack 3. And bring this away and just click on this. It should take a moment to import. All right, so now that we have all of our assets imported, I'm going to focus on idle as being my main object to bring in. First thing to do is to configure all of these game objects here. So I've got fembot idle, and if I click on it, I go to my import settings. I'm going to make I need this to be set up properly, so it's not a generic animation. I'm going to change it to humanoid because it's really a humanoid object. Now we need an avatar definition, and this avatar definition I only need to do once because I can share the same avatar amongst the other 3 animations, so they all share a common linkage between them all. So I'll choose can create from this model, and I'll hit apply. All right, and it's going to create. It's going to convert it to be humanoid. It's going to create an avatar, and if I actually expand fembot idle, it's got a fembot idle avatar. All right, and I can configure the avatar later on. All right, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply this same setting. So instead of, so I'll walk you through it by segment. So starting with rig, we converted to humanoid, created an avatar for it. Now, if I go to fembot attack 1, I'm going to do the same thing, generic to humanoid, but instead of create from model, I'm going to switch it to copy from another avatar. And I already have fembot idle's avatar already expanded. I'm just going to drag and drop it here. All right, and hit apply. So the avatar is already created. Now I'll do the same for fembot attack 2. All right, generic to humanoid, avatar definition, copy from another avatar, drag and drop. All right, and hit apply. And finally, for attack 3, same idea. Copy from avatar and drag and drop. All right, and hit apply. So now what you're seeing is that the rig has been set up properly for all of these animations. I'll ignore female robot because I really just care about fembot idle. Now, if I click on animation, here's all the animation properties. All right, and I'll start with fembot idle, highlighting it. The first thing I'll mention is that by default, the animation is called Mixamo.com, which is very very difficult to work with. So I want to call it idle. Right, hit enter. All right, so now the animation will be known as idle, and there's properties. I can rotate it. I can configure it and fine tune it. So you may find that the animation is not properly centered or set up. This is the area to come and play with the settings, like body orientation. You can switch to original. The most important thing, because this is an idle animation, I'm going to choose loop time, because idle, I want it to repeat. So I hit play. You can see here what it looks like, what's happening there. And loop time is just to repeat it. Now, the funny thing about hitting play is even if I didn't check loop time, it would keep repeating, which is misleading. So when you run it, you'll see the animation run once, and that's it. And you'll be like, why isn't my idle looping? Well, you have to check off loop time. All right. If you had, and this is very common, you might have multiple animations just bundled all together into one clip here. You can use the plus and the you can use the plus to add more animations, and then and adjust the start and the end time. So you can clip out those animations and have a bunch of animations together. All right, but that's for another day. All right, so I'm gonna hit apply. And you'll notice that the name idle has changed from mixamo.com to idle, so it's been saved here for fembot idle. All right, now for the other three animations, under the animations tag, I'm just gonna change the name from mixamo.com to attack1. All right, hit play to see what happens. I don't need to do a loop time for this because I only want this to happen once. This is my fireball animation, and it doesn't look entirely right. Okay, I might try a bake into pose here. All right, and see what happens, even the Y. Right. Well, for this exercise, you can play around with it more. Okay, so you can play around with the settings. I'll just hit apply because I just want to see an animation happen. Okay, we're not doing anything perfect for this exercise. All right, and I'm going to call this attack 2. And you can see here there's some red and yellow dots. All right, I might try a bake into pose. Might try original. Just play around with it just to see, how it works. That looks all right. So I'll save that. All right, and so you may not always get it from red to yellow, but these indicators tell you that there's something not quite right with the animation, and you want to play around with these settings to see what you can do. All right, and fembot attack 3, same idea. Call it attack 3. I'll leave the settings as they are. All right, and hit apply. And if you expand them, you'll see that you now have attack 3, attack 2, and attack 1. All right, so you have all your animations in play. Now it's up to us to create a scene to use these in. So I'm going to create a new scene. I'm going to go to scenes here, and we'll call it, so I'll say plus, and there's scene. I'm going to call it minigame scene. And let's open it up. All right, let's go open scene. I'm going to add a plane. So under 3D object, game object, let's add a plane and make it 1,000 by 1,000. All right. So we have that. So let's see where the main camera is. Main camera is at 0, 1 minus 10. That's okay for now. We might have to play with some of that settings. Let's bring in Fembot idle and throw her somewhere in the scene. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure Fembot idle to be at 0, 0, 0. Okay. And I'm going to set the scale to be 5, 5, 5. All right. Now let's click on our main camera. And there we have Fembot there. It's she's facing the wrong way. So let's switch Fembot to be 180. Oh, sorry, that was the main camera that went 180. We got to be very careful. It's Control Z to undo. Fembot idle. Let's make it 180. All right, and then you can click on our game scene. There we go. We can see that it's there. You know what? It feels really dark. Well, first let me adjust the camera and see if I can play with the lighting a bit. So what I want to do is I want to raise. Oops, a little too fast there. All right, and let's rotate this camera. Wrong way. Okay, so I'm just gonna make some adjustments. Let's see if that's it. Okay, good. And I don't like the lighting. Let's all right, so we've got our we added an extra light just to brighten it up. So there we go. Let's just see what happens when we run. And you can see Fembot is there in the middle, nothing happening, which is perfectly fine. So switching over to the Animator tab, we can see that it's still focusing on the slide image. We're going to create an animator for this for this object here. So I'll go to project. I'll manually create a file. Click on animations and do a plus, and animator controller is what I want. So I'm going to call this Fembot animator controller. All right, you can see here there's even an exit. There's actually an exit state as well. I'll bring it in closer just to show you. But now I have here Fembot animator controller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the animations that I need for this setup. So first thing I'll do is switch back to Fembot, expand Fembot idle. There's the idle animation. I'm going to drag that here. It's going to create a transition automatically there. All right, now I'm going to expand on the attack 1, 2, and 3 and drag their animations in. There's attack 2. All right, and attack 3. All right. Now I'm going to create transitions to and from each of these back to idle. So I'm going to right click on idle, make transition to attack 1, right click on attack 1, make a transition back to idle. Do the same for attack 2 and attack 3. There. Now all of my animations have transitions to and from idle. All right. Now let's add triggers because we don't want these to automatically fire. Like what'll happen is it'll go to idle, then go to attack 1, back to idle, then attack 2, back to idle, attack 3, back to idle. We don't want that. We want to actually set it up so that the user, when they press a key, actually gets the animation to fire. So let's set up some triggers. So I'm going to hit plus, add a trigger. So we attack 1 trigger. I'll hit plus again, trigger, attack 2 trigger. And attack 3 trigger. All right. And now I'm going to apply these to one transition each. So starting with attack 1 here, if I click on the transition to go from idle to attack 1, I'll see conditions is empty. I'll just hit plus, and there's attack 1 trigger. And if I click on the transition from idle to attack 2, I hit plus. It says attack 1 trigger. I'll just hit the drop down, choose attack 2 trigger. And for transition from idle to attack 3, hit plus again, choose attack 3 trigger. All right, let's just hit Control S to save everything. So clicking somewhere in the workspace, Control S to save to make sure we have saved our Fembot Animator controller.controller. All right, now what we want to do is we want to apply this Animator controller state machine to our Fembot idle that's in our game scene. So I'm going to click on Fembot idle in our hierarchy. You can see under controller, there's already an animator, but there's no controller. So if I click on the circle there, I'll just choose Fembot Animator controller. All right, now let's give it a run. And there you go. You see Fembot idling now and actually doing something. All right, and so you can see that it's stuck in idle mode. And what we're going to do now is we're going to set up some controls so that we click on a character on the keyboard and it actually makes something happen. All right, so now that we have our animations ready to go, we have an animation controller up and running with some triggers ready to be pulled. Let's continue on with our game here in our game scene. So what I want to do is I want to create a script to manage this scene. All right, first let's do a Control S. I don't want to lose my stuff. You never know with a crash or whatever. So Control S to save that. I'm going to go to Project, go to my scripts, and create a new script. So a new C# script. I'm going to call it mini game page script. And let's get Visual Studio to open it up. All right, so we have here mini game page script. We'll come back to this in a moment. All right, what I want to do is I want to create a game object to house or attach this this script to. So I'm going to hit game object, create empty. Let's call this mini game script. All right, and let's add component. Type in mini, there's mini game page script. So I have my mini game page script. All right, so now I can go ahead and add in some functionality here. Since we're at it, let's add in a back button to this scene. All right, to complete this, we can actually have proper navigation. So I'm going to say game object UI button, and I'm going to call it back button. It's in an awkward place, but we'll fix that. I'm going to make it 50 wide and anchor it to the top left corner. There we go, holding down Alt. All right, and change the text to back. All right. And now let's jump into our code and actually write the code to get everything up and running. But since we're actually, before we do jump into code, before I forget, because I typically forget about this, one of the most important things, and we talked about this in our last video, was that when we add a new scene, we have to add it to our build settings. So I'm going to go to File, Build Settings. All right, now hit Add Open Scenes. All right, so you'll see that when you hit Add Open Scenes, your current scene, minigame scene, gets added. I'm not building to any particular device right now, so I'm just going to hit the X to make it go away. Okay, So let's switch over to Visual Studio and let's add our code for this script. So first off, let's just get it out of the way. Let's get our back button up and running. So we'll say public void go home. All right, and we'll just do, well, we need scene manager, so we got to actually say using Unity engine dot scene management. All right, and for this we'll say scene manager dot load scene and homepage. All right, just gotta quickly double check that it is called homepage. We don't want to run into any problems later on. So project scenes, home scene. Gotta be very careful of that. So you gotta double check your spelling. So I have home scene, so I gotta fix that. So it should be home scene. So always good to double check. All right, so my back button's configured. Now let's get into getting our user input. So I'll say public game object fembot. Okay, and inside update, I'm actually going to move update above. So let's do a Control X there, just so it's easier for you guys to read. All right, so I've got void update. Now I'm going to have it set up so that we're going to use the letters A, S, and D to trigger a different animation. So what we'll do is inside update say if input dot get key and key code dot A. All right, then we'll say fembot dot get component and animator dot set trigger for attack one trigger. Double check your spellings. All right, I'll check it at the end. I'll say if input dot get key for key code dot s, then fembot dot get component animator dot set trigger attack to trigger. All right, if input dot get key dot key code dot D, then fembot dot get component animator dot set trigger for attack 3 trigger. All right, that's all I need. Now it's up to us to run it, but before we do, we got to connect up fembot to our idle animation. So let's get Control S to save. And I also promised I would double check my spelling because this is a common area where things could fail. So let's just open up this, go to my animator. It's going to take a sec as the script refreshes. All right, so we have our mini game script. Fembot has none, so we'll drag fembot idle over. So we have the connection there, and also for our back button, let's add the back capability to it. So I'm gonna hit plus, and we'll make it runtime and editor, and we'll drag minigame script into that empty none object and choose minigame page script. Go home. All right. Now Control S to save, but we also have to go to our home scene and configure the button there. So I'm going to click on home scene. And we need to create a method for our About Us button. All right. So I'm going to switch back to my Visual Studio there. Main page script. We have go to settings. We have go to game. I'm just going to copy and paste. So There's go to game. Let's call it go to mini game. And we'll say asynchronous load mini game scene. All right. So we have here go to mini game and asynchronous load mini game scene. So it should do the 100% load that we talked about last video. So I'm going to hit save, Control S to save, and switch back to Unity. Give it a moment to refresh. All right, so clicking on mini game button there, right? We'll scroll down. We have to add a click event handler there, so we'll hit plus and change that to editor and runtime. We'll drag our main page script and choose under main page script, go to mini game. All right, we'll do a Control S to save this, and let's give it a run. All right, so there's our home page. Click on About. There's Fembot in idle. Now, I'm just going to hit the letter A. Actually, before I do, I'm going to add the Animator tab so we can see what's going on. Make sure that it's pointing to the correct animator. So hit Fembot idle. There we go. So we can see what's going on in our state machine there. So right now it's in idle. Make sure I click on the game tab, because this won't work if this game scene is not in focus, then it won't work. So clicking on it a few times, we have to be sure. Hit the letter A. There we go. And so you can see an attack as though the fireball animation happens. It's not perfect. You'll have to tune it and make some adjustments to it to fit the game. But the idea here is just to get an animation going. And hit the letter S now. So you can see there was a big jump. And okay, so that really messed things up. And now you'd probably want to add in some functionality to follow Fembot. So I'm going to switch to scene. Let's just see where Fembot is, just so we can see what's going on. I'm going to double click on Fembot idle. There she is. And hit the letter D. Give it a sec. All right, letter D. Looks like D is not happening. So we got to look at, let's debug it and figure out what's going on there. All right, so switch to minigame page script. Attack 3 trigger is what it has. Key code is D. All right, the D key. Let's check our spelling. Attack 3 trigger. Everything looks fine. Oh, actually, you know what? You know what it was? I clicked on the scene, but I didn't click on the tab on the game tab here. Now that this is in focus, hit letter D. There we go. So it's human error on that part. But yeah, so all three work. So there you have it. We covered animations today. We covered how to do UI animation, so getting our user interface to animate different objects around there. Then we looked at Mixamo and how to add animations to a character, a humanoid character, and then how to create a script to call these using the Animator state machine and the animations tab. So both those tabs are very powerful and can provide a lot in terms of animating your characters and your objects. All right, that's it for today. Don't forget to like and hit subscribe, and looking forward to seeing you in the next video tutorial. All right, take care, have a good one, and bye for now.